Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. On behalf of iccbs UNESCO Chair, I would welcome all of you to this exciting lecture today on the series of UNESCO Chair lecture. And before we start our lecture today, I would just like to briefly introduce and give the message from UNESCO Chair Network. So the UNESCO Chair Network is a part of UN, and it's made up for the promotion of international inter-university cooperation and network to enhance institutional capacities through knowledge sharing and collaborative work. Major objective of UNESCO Chair is basically linking researchers and practitioners, research and training, as well as giving opportunities to young scholars to do some innovative and multidisciplinary research in different fields of research of science and technology. So iccbs has become a part of UNESCO Chair back in 2020. And if I can briefly give you the timeline, we signed agreement in October 2020. And at that time, then Professor Dr. Iqbal Chaudhry was the UNESCO Chair. And then after finishing his tenure in 2023, Professor Dr. Raza Shah, current director, has become the UNESCO Chair. So with that, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Raza Shah to briefly introduce about this activity, and then we'll move on to the lecture today. Sir, please. No, please. Start.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. My respected teacher, Professor Atta, Rahman, Dr. Riyaz, Dr. Mushana, Dr. Khalid, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. It's always very difficult to talk in front of respected teacher, Professor Atta Rahman. So he is the proud son of Pakistan, and I have been associated with Dr. Saab for now more than 2 decades. And it's a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he is associated with us. He is known for top quality research work right from the beginning of his career as a PhD student. He did some extraordinary work. He challenged the ideas of Nobel laureates and the work of the Nobel laureates, and later on proved that Professor Rahman was right. and that was proven through experiments. Similarly, his contribution to education and development in this country is phenomenal. He just changed the landscape of education in this country, and that shows that if you want to just propel the country and excel in science and technology and also just achieve those status, just a single person can do such a change. So the role of the leadership is extremely important. If you have a top quality leadership, you will see changes. And that changes then propagate and then just goes to the lower level. And that what we have seen in the educational sector of Pakistan, and Professor Atta often just discussed this in his presentation, that now we are just exceeding India in terms of per capita publication, like per million. The Indian publication are more, but their population is also much more than us. But still, if you just go to the Google and you just Google it, you will find that Pakistan is performing better than the India. And one of the examples which we have recently seen, that the Pakistan just defeated India, not because we had a very large number of good army and large number of the aircrafts and missile system, but it was that we had a very sharp and intelligent mind, and the Indian army were confronted by young, sharp, and talented engineers, which were trained by the educational systems and by the programs which were introduced by Professor Rahman in the country. So that just shows that we need to invest on science and technology in order to get a recognition and respect in the international world. And that is with the war of Israel and Iran, what we have witnessed is that the technology was the difference. The Israel just was sitting, they didn't send troops to the soil of Iran. They were just targeted the specific building. That is the first strike. They just eliminated the top military hierarchy of the Iran military. So that shows that you know that now if you want to just get a respect and sustainability, and it is also imperative for the national security to spend on science and technology. The UNESCO chair, let me just briefly introduce, and Dr. Riaz already just mentioned about it, that the UNESCO chair is a program and which is initiated by the UNESCO, and there are in Pakistan there are 4 UNESCO chairs, and one is based at the iccbs. Since I took over, we initiated a number of programs that not only we initiated one of the largest internship programs under the UNESCO chair, in which we just recruited 174 students, and they are getting training in various laboratories of the ICCB. Similarly, we are regularly conducting workshops, training workshop, because that is what the UNESCO is asking for, and that is what is our mandate. So we are regularly organizing workshops in various aspects of the medicinal chemistry and natural product chemistry. Similarly, we are organizing also lectures in this area, and this particular lecture is also a part of it. So I'm not going to take more time, because we are going to listen to a very exciting journey of Professor Atta Rahman, who is known world-renowned figure in the area of natural product chemistry. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. So it's now my honor to introduce, which needs no introduction, Professor Atta Rahman is most decorated scientist of Pakistan, having won 4 civil awards, including Tamgha Imtiaz, Sitara Imtiaz, Hilal Imtiaz, and the highest national civil award, which is Nishan Imtiaz. So, and internationally, he has got lots of other civil awards. For example, from the Austrian government, he has got the highest scientific award from the Austrian president at that time. And Professor Rahman has been the Federal Minister for Science and Technology, as well as Federal Minister for Education and Chairman of the Higher Education Commission, and with the Minister of State till 2008. He has won the prestigious UNESCO Science Prize and was elected Honorary Life Fellow of King College, Cambridge University, UK. Professor Rahman has conferred honorary degree from various institutions across the world, including Cambridge University, Coventry University, Bradford, Asian Institute of Technology, and University of Technology, Mara. And on the academic side, Professor Rahman has over 1,559 international publications in several fields of organic chemistry, including 391 books. And he has also been appointed as an academician, as a foreign member in prestigious Chinese Academy of Sciences and fellow of the Korean Academy of Science and Technology. And Professor Rahman has been the coordinator general of COMSTEC as well. He is presently our professor emeritus at the iccbs and serving this center from the beginning, I must say. So with that, I would really like to request Professor Rahman to come over and deliver his talk on the field of electrochemical.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Professor Raza Shah, colleagues, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. In the 45 minutes or 50 minutes that I have, I will be describing, I've chosen a few interesting areas of chemistry that I've been involved in and some other activities that I have been doing over the last 5 decades or so. So firstly, this center, I've been involved in it for more than 55 or 60 years now. My contributions in terms of some books and some journals, interesting synthetic reactions that I discovered or rearrangements that I discovered, and then some work on higher education and the transformation of Pakistan in that area. A few photographs. This is Professor Salimuzzaman Siddiqui, who founded the institute, standing next to me. He was the founder and he established the nucleus of the institute. Professor Iqbal Chaudhry, he was my PhD student, and then he made wonderful contributions to the development of this institute. So this is a photograph when I was visiting the US. He was at Cornell at the time, and so we went out together. Professor Viqaruddin Ahmed played a wonderful role in the development of this institute. He was one of the pioneering faculty members here, along with me and Professor Zafar Zaidi. And so this institute owes a lot to these great people who have contributed in the past to the development of this facility. And this is me on the left, the young Dr. Atta, just a little Atta, not Dr. Atta, with my father and mother. I was about 8 years old at the time, so this is my early days. And this is another person, Professor, this is President Pervez Musharraf, sitting next to my mother. When I got the fellowship of the Royal Society, he had a special function there, and my family members. So President Musharraf played a special role in my life in the development of the higher education and science and technology sector. So we must acknowledge him and my children and their wives are standing in the back. So what I'll be talking about is a somewhat breathless description of what I've tried to do, starting with a few interesting aspects of chemistry, what I tried to do in information technology, which was to bring in Pakistan's first IT policy, give a 15-year tax holiday at that time to the IT industry, which continues to this day, the jump start of mobile telephony in Pakistan, Pakistan's first satellite, linking all our universities with high-speed internet access, the PERN, Pakistan Education Research Network, bandwidth, etc. In the science and technology sector, a 6,000% increase in the development budget of science in Pakistan, and the extension of our oceanic borders from 200 nautical miles to 350 nautical miles, giving us much wider ownership of the mineral and other resources of Pakistan, introducing the tenure track system of faculty, etc. in Pakistan. Then the HEC programs, some books and journals, about 52 new universities that I have established, which include the Balochistan University of Information Technology and Management Sciences, the Virtual University, more recently the Pakistan Austrian University in Hazara, etc. And another aspect which I will not talk about is my interest in textile engineering and how I invented a fabric called Moonlight in the 1970s. And that became almost in every marriage, women were wearing Moonlight at that time. That was a metallic yarn that I developed. And this is, of course, the various buildings within this institute. There are about 17 research buildings. And it continues to grow, alhamdulillah, thanks to the excellent faculty and staff that we have and the determination of everybody to work together as a team. The institute has won many grants internationally, including about 5.77 million Deutschmarks from Germany, an $8 million grant for our office, from the Office of Naval Research, of which $2 million was for this institute and £6 million for others. £1 million from £1 million from the UK for collaboration with Sussex, $23 million from Japan, and the JICA project, and so on. So many international grants with which we have built up a center which has state-of-the-art facilities which are as good as any you'd find in the world. And there are, of course, other grants as well. And there have been 33 civil awards that the Institute has won, which include, there have been 2 Fellows of the Royal Society, the UNESCO Science Prize, and Nishan-e-Imtiaz, 4 Hilal-e-Imtiaz, 13 Sitara-e-Imtiaz, and 14 Tamga-e-Imtiaz and Pride of Performance. So 33 civil awards. There's no other institute in Pakistan which has been such a galaxy of faculty, along with other doctorate degrees, etc. And our facilities, as you would see, mass spectrometry, NMR, 800 megahertz, just in the building next door, and others. Some work on my books. One of the very interesting books that I wrote was on stereoselective synthesis in organic chemistry. All of you are familiar with synthesis. The challenge is joining bonds in a stereoselective manner. And so the entire book that I wrote along with my former student Zahir Shah was on stereoselective synthesis. Every chapter, carbon-carbon bonds, carbon-hydrogen bonds, oxidations, reductions, etc., is all how do you do this in a stereoselective fashion. So this is something that was, this book became very popular, and a Nobel laureate, Sir Derek Barton, wrote the foreword to it, and he called it a monumental contribution by me. It was published by Springer Verlag in Germany. Another interesting book was an NMR, which I wrote when I was in Pakistan. This is my first book on NMR. At that time, जो NMR की जो किताबें आती थी, उनमें mathematical equations होती थी. तो क्या exactly हो रहा है जब pulses को apply करते हैं on the nuclei, ये उसकी physical picture नहीं आती थी. So I was not an expert in NMR, and I still am not an expert in NMR. But I said, can we write something which is totally different from how other specialists have contributed? So this was the first book ever published which described a physical description of the behavior of magnetization vectors on application of pulses. When you do a 90-degree pulse, how does it bend? And when you do relaxations, what happens, etc. So all the experiments, COSY, NOSY, 2D resolve, heterocosy, etc., all described not just by mathematical equations, but by the physical behavior of these dancing vectors, magnetization vectors on application of different pulses. And this became very popular again. This was in the early 1990s that I wrote this. And this was translated into Japanese and into other languages and became quite popular. And all the other NMR books that have been published since have adopted this approach of describing NMR in terms of physical behavior of magnetization vectors. Another book that I wrote on NMR was this one, which was published by Elsevier Science. And in this, I have given a chapter which goes into the opposite extreme. Means that one chapter is on product operator approach to NMR, which means that every experiment, like COSY, NOSY, etc., they're all described purely in mathematical terms. What exactly is happening mathematically? So that's got the other extreme. So it's interesting that the two books should actually be read together. One describing the physical behavior, and the other describing the mathematical description of what is happening to these vectors. And then with Iqbal, he wrote this one on solving problems with NMR spectroscopy, and then 6 volumes have come out on the application subsequently. So there are about 10 books on NMR spectroscopy. I have authored about 11 books. The rest are all edited. And one of these edited series is a green series. Sorry. Yeah, it's a green series, Studies in Natural Pot Chemistry. We started this about 30 years ago. And now 87 volumes have now come out, which have been published by Elsevier. We are publishing about 4 volumes each year. And this is the world's most comprehensive encyclopedic series on natural products now. If I live long enough, I hope to do the centenary. So I'm not sure whether I can make the 100, but still, that's an interesting. It's the most. Each book focuses on bioactive natural products and the work going on there. And yeah, this is the book series. Sorry, and then solving problems. And then some journals that I've been involved in, etc. But coming to medicinal plants, that's an area in which we have worked for the last 5 decades. And so there is a huge market for them, over $70 billion of annual sales of botanicals. And there are about 21,000 plant species which are listed as medicinal plants. And NAFTA alert, which is published under Cordell, has also been involved in this NAFTA alert, where it lists about 9,200 species of higher plants and lichens which have medicinal properties. In Pakistan, there are about 6,000 plant species, of which 400 are medicinally important. And because we have a climatic zone from the south, from the desert areas in Karachi, around Karachi, to the plains, fertile plains of Punjab, and then going on to the mountainous areas, there's a huge amount of geographical diversity, and this is accompanied by the biodiversity of different plant species that we find here. And at HEJ, we have looked at a large number of extracts from different parts of Pakistan as well as from others. And my own group, we have isolated more than 2,000 compounds, of which over 800 were found to be new or novel. And 83 students have completed doctorate degrees under my supervision. One of the areas in which I was involved in the early 70s, 60s, 70s, and early 80s was this compound, the anti-cancer drug vinblastine. This compound, as you would see, has a tetracyclic. Do we have a pointer? इसमें है pointer? Sorry. Yeah, okay. So it has a tetracyclic unit here, 4 rings, which was not known in nature in a separated form, and then it has a pentacyclic vindoline moiety attached here. So this is the known anti-cancer drug vinblastine, which was marketed by Eli Lilly in USA, and it was isolated from the leaves of periwinkle, जो सदाबहार बाहर उग रहा है, उसके या तो सफेद फूल होते हैं या तरह के लाइट पर्पल फूल होते हैं, इनमें से निकलता है, and it's sold under the name of Velvi, and a closely related compound is vincristine, which is oncovin, sold under the trade name of oncovin. This is used in Hodgkin's disease, which is cancer of the lymphatic system, and vincristine is used for acute leukemia in children. And behind the institute, we were at one time growing large fields of this plant, Catharanthus roseus, and we developed large-scale procedures for the isolation of these alkaloids, catharanthine, vindoline, vinblastine, etc. And if you look at the plant, there was a search at that time for these tetracyclic compounds, but these tetracyclic compounds were never discovered. These so-called cleaver means were never discovered at that time. But I proposed that within the same plant, you have this alkaloid, catharanthine, which is a pentacyclic compound. But if you can break this carbon-carbon bond here, this can generate that kind of structure, the vinblastine, this type of structure with the tetracyclic moiety can be created by the cleavage of this carbon-carbon bond. So we started isolating, at least theoretically it seemed reasonable that this may be one source of the biosynthesis of vinblastine, starting from catharanthine. So we started at that time isolating large quantities of catharanthine and vindoline, and we showed indeed that if you take catharanthine, you can actually move these electrons around in the manner shown by protonation of the indole 3 position to generate this ammonium species with this bond cleaved to generate the desired unit that we wanted. And if you can track this with sodium borohydride, then it should be possible to make these clearimine type of compounds. So we, in fact, did that, and this was possible to do it in 2 ways, either taking acid, treating it with acid, and then adding sodium borohydride to generate carbon. And this could be prepared in about 80% yield. In high yields, one could make these tetracyclic moieties. Or you could do it in 1 step, just taking glacial acetic acid and adding sodium borohydride. So it's a 1-pot reaction, and you could then make this compound in excellent yields, which could then be converted by activating this position for attack by vindoline, the so-called C16 position. You could make the chloroindolinine using N-chlorobenzotriazole, and then use vindoline as a whole as a nucleophile to attack that C16 position with the SN2 prime displacement of the chlorine to generate vinblastine type analogs. Except that this approach gave the wrong configuration at that point. You ended up with the epimer at that point rather than the natural isomer. And later on, we developed another procedure using thallium triacetate to give the natural procedure for vinblastine synthesis, for which we filed a patent in Pakistan. One of the interesting reactions that we came across, that when you, since we had another compound from the same extract, which was 19S-vindolinine, and you tried to take the NMR of that, we find that it, in solution, it slowly isomerizes this position, the 19th position, in which the methyl is beta, to the 19R position, where the methyl is alpha. And that was very strange because there's no carbonyl group or any, there are two quaternary carbons next to it. So there's no obvious mechanism through which it can be done. And so what we proposed was that the mechanism for its transformation must involve an internal cleavage through the mechanism of the type of shown, that you can have a nitrogen lone pair involved with the cleavage of the carbon-carbon bond and the protonated compound or the deuterium protonation there leading to the cleaved compound. And this ammonium species here can then go isomerize through the corresponding enamine, leading to the 19R, which is the less sterically hindered compound. So this indeed was a very interesting reaction, and we could show that this did in that happen. Another interesting reaction was the lead tetraacetate oxidation of hexacyclic 16-epi-19S benzamine into this tricyclic product. And for this, we proposed again a mechanism through which this can be cleaved using through the attack of lead on the nitrogen, and then a fragmentation as proposed, formation of this iminium species, and then attack of the acetate here to give rise to this, by cleavage of this bond, to give rise to this aldehyde. There are binary indole alcohols known of this type of structure also. Similarly, we isolated in a collaboration with our friends in Jordan some very interesting compounds which we named Jerusalemine and Salimine, which had actually a 6-membered ring here, rather than the normal 7-membered ring found in the colchicum alkaloid series. And this again, we proposed that this transformation of this 7-membered ring, which is normally found in colchicum alkaloids, to these 6-membered compounds, probably goes through this kind of a transformation in which there is a catabolic pathway in which the a peroxidase enzyme can attack here, and then you can have a this cyclopropane type intermediate form, which can then cleave to this in the manner shown to give you a 6-membered ring compounds. So these are very interesting rearrangements that we discovered, which are occurring naturally. Professor Raza Shah mentioned just now about some work that we did to disprove some of the earlier work of a Nobel laureate, Sir Robert Robinson. What Robert Robinson had published was that he and the famous W.H. Perkin, after whom the two top British journals, Journal of Chemical Society, Perkin 1 and Perkin 2 are named, and Manske, who the author of a series of books called The Alkaloids. They were the joint authors of a paper which had described that if you treat N-acetyl harmony with ethanol, HCl, and ammonia, and then treat the resulting product with acetic anhydride and sodium acetate, you end up this compound with the indole nitrogen acetylated. Now, when I was doing my PhD, I came across this paper and seemed something strange was going on here, because indole nitrogens are non-basic, and they're not normally acetylated using acetic anhydride and sodium acetate. So something was very fishy here. But I was busy at that time in my PhD work, so I didn't have time to go into it. But after my PhD and when I was elected as a fellow at King's College, I decided to reinvestigate that chemistry, and found, in fact, that something totally different happened. That if you take these compounds and you treat them in this manner, what happens actually is that this ammonium species can be hydrated, and you can have an hydroxyl group being attacked here, and this can lead to the cleavage of this bond according to the mechanism shown to give you these compound in which this ring has been cleaved. And you don't get any nitrogen acetylated. And then we use these reactions for synthesizing many other interesting compounds with rings attached here to give rise to some very interesting indole chemistry. Another reaction that we developed was, I came across Professor Venkat, a very famous natural product chemist, San Diego, California. And he had found that you cannot cyclize when you have imides of this type. If you have a 6-membered ring here, the normal Bichler-Napieralski reaction, which involves polyphosphoric acid or phosphorus oxychloride, works with 6-membered rings, but it does not work with 5-membered rings. And this was rather important at that time because Woodward, in his synthesis of vitamin B12, Woodward and Eschenmoser, Woodward in Harvard and Eschenmoser in ETH, they were working on trying to join 5-membered rings together to make to try to synthesize vitamin B12. And so we therefore became interested in this reaction. And we said, well, can we activate these rings in some other manner? And we thought one way in which we could potentially activate these rings for attack by the indole 2 position would be by treating them with Biermann's reagent, triethyloxonium tetrafluoroborate. And so indeed, when you treat this compound with triethyloxonium tetrafluoroborate, you can alkylate that oxygen. And this immediately then becomes extremely active because of the positive charge on the oxygen, leading to a cyclization and a departure of the ethoxy group to give you such compounds, which on treatment of base give you the binalogous amine. So this works very well, and we then again synthesize a large number of different compounds using this approach. And in fact, when I was delivering a lecture in in Boston at the IUPAC conference, Professor Woodward was there attending, the famous Woodward, who did the synthesis of B12. He walked up to me and he said, if he had published this a few years earlier, it would have saved us many years because they were stuck in joining the rings together. So this is a very interesting reaction for joining 5-membered rings together. We also have done many other reactions, conversion of leucine into anhydrovinblastine, which is that epoxide over there being converted into a double bond. And this can then be converted into vinblastine itself using metachloroprobenzoic acid and reductive procedures. Now let me move to another area. This is now some work on neuroscience that we have done. And one of the areas that we've been involved in is epilepsy. More recently, we have gone into Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. But the functioning of the human brain is fascinating. You have about 85 billion neurons in your brain, and each one is talking to some 10,000 other neurons. So 85 billion times 10,000 synaptic connections. Arguably the most complex object of our universe is our own brain. Understanding the chemistry of the brain is a huge challenging area, and very little is known about it. We know a lot about where memories are stored, but we know very little about what goes wrong with the neurological processes when various diseases like autism or epilepsy or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or other schizophrenia, etc. occur. So in the case of epilepsy, this work started with one of my former students, Amber Nasreen, who did a PhD in this on the thesis of plant Delphinium denudatum, and then it was carried out by a number of other people. Dr. Farzana and her colleagues did some wonderful work, and which has then evolved with Professor Iqbal Chaudhry, of course, being a lead scientist in the project as well, has evolved into some very interesting compounds. So basically what happens is that in the case of epilepsy, you have an uncontrolled firing of neurons. So, and if you can suppress this uncontrolled firing of neurons, you can control epileptic seizures. And the most common treatments are sodium channel blockers, but only few epileptic drugs are known. And but a number of plants were identified. One of them is Delphinium denudatum, and there are positive species as well, which have in local folklore have been shown to have anti-epileptic activity. And this is a necklace. Actually, this person is my lab boy. He was my lab boy. He doesn't suffer from epilepsy, but he wanted to have himself photographed. So I put his photograph here. The roots of the plant are used by patients in this manner, which made us suspect that the substances present may be volatile. And so a number of bioassays are used for testing for epilepsy. And we have in the institute a patch clamp facility where we can excite individual neurons with very weak currents of 10 to the minus 12 of an ampere. And when you excite neurons like this, then they go uncontrolled firing. And you can then do this excitation in the presence or absence of plant extracts of your compounds and see if there is any activity in the plant extracts of your compounds. So using this, and basically what you're doing is you can follow the potassium and sodium ion channels that are being, and using this technology where we can excite neurons, we ultimately we isolated the main compound, isoxylatones A and P, and both of them reduce the expression of the CFOS protein in kindled animals. And this CFOS belongs to the family of immediate early gene transcription factors. And it is known that the CFOS increases dramatically during neuronal activation. And also the brain-derived neuropathic factor was also significantly inhibited in the kindled brain. Finally, we did the synthetic approaches to these compounds, synthesized libraries, starting with the isoporone, using Horner and Evans reaction functionalization of this moiety here, hydrolysis, and then making different binded amides, and then a Grignard reaction to put the ethyl or other groups onto that carbonide, led us to a series of compounds, and these were finally patented. And Dr. Farzana has developed some very interesting modifications of these isoxylatones, including a nasal preparation, which has been patented and which we are working on marketing presently with some international and local companies. These are the various libraries, and these are the various patents that were obtained. And the clinical trials were done. This has been something that has led me to think what are thoughts made of? The molecular basis of thoughts. जो सोच हैं उनकी chemistry क्या है? You look at an object, you remember it. कोई photographic plate तो नहीं है आपके दिमाग के अंदर. तो हो क्या रहा है? What is the chemistry behind learning, forgetting, logic? What is the chemistry of thought? Thoughts are not abstract for certain. They are touchable. They are made of atoms and molecules. What atoms? What molecules? Fascinating area of science. So this led us to propose that the basis of thought is hydrogen bonding in glycoproteins. आपके जो hypothalamus है दिमाग के अंदर, उसके अंदर glycoproteins होती हैं. Glycoproteins क्या होती हैं? एक protein backbone होती है. Various amino acids linked together, protein, and then you have various sugars attached. Glucose, arabinose, fructose, xylose वगैरह, sugars, glycoproteins. Sugars की क्या खासियत है? There are huge number of hydroxyl groups. Hydroxyl groups की क्या खासियत है? They are protonated very easily. Protonation की क्या importance है? DNA would not be DNA without protonation, the two helixes. And these can be very powerfully linked because the forces are cumulative, hydrogen bonding. So water would not be water without hydrogen bonding. It would exist as a gas. So hydrogen bonding is fundamental in nature. So what we proposed about 25 years ago, that memories could be, normally glycoproteins are in constant motion. These are dancing glycoproteins. They are in constant motion. But these motions can be frozen. Their conformations can be frozen through hydrogen bonding. And what we proposed was that through hydrogen bonding, the conformational mobility of glycoproteins can be frozen, leading to pattern formation. And these patterns formed by the hydrogen bonding of glycoproteins are the manner in which thoughts may be stored. Remember, I'm saying may. It was just a theory. May be stored. And so, and the breaking of this, so learning would involve the formation of these patterns. Forgetting would involve the breaking of hydrogen bonds and the disruption of these patterns. And logic would be the correlation of these patterns by a number of mechanisms. Various patterns linked together, knowledge about whatever you have learned in school, about your parents, or all the knowledge that you have stored. This could all be in the form of various patterns, and the interrelationship of these patterns by various mechanisms. I have written a number of reviews in international journals on this, and now there is growing evidence that we were right. A number of papers have been published now in which such patterns have been proposed, and it has been found that indeed glycoproteins are fundamental to memory storage. So this is a fascinating area. Work continues to evolve in this field. And so I won't spend too much time. These are some patterns over here. And logic has an overlay of these patterns for a number of mechanisms. And what are these mechanisms? So there are many papers have been published internationally on what we are doing, whether this could be through the electric currents that are produced, or it could be due to molecular vibrations, or it could be due to quantum entanglements. There could be a number of mechanisms through which such patterns could be interact together. And as I said, many papers have been published in this field now, and supporting our hypothesis. But final proof, I think, still remains to come. So I think we still have to have a question mark about this. Still, one can actually see those patterns, and technology has not evolved enough to be able to see those patterns, although there is indirect evidence growing that these are indeed there. But this is a fascinating area of neuroscience, which I think some of you might want to enter into in the future. And this leads to the area of quantum consciousness, and Nobel laureate proposed that you might have quantum entanglements actually taking place in these glycoproteins. So quantum consciousness may also exist. Now let me shift in the last 15 minutes or so to another area, and that is changing the landscape of higher education and science. And this is an interesting, this has been taken from Scimago about the international ranking. You can you can look it up also. This is the research ranking of Pakistan. Bottom line, year 2000. So when I came in as the Federal Minister for Science. Top is 2023. And economics, chemical engineering, biochemistry, physics, agriculture. So for instance, we look at economics, we were number 96 in the world in the year 2000. We are now number 17 in the world. Chemical engineering, 63 to 20. Biochemistry, 62 to 21. Physics, 59 to 23. So in almost all the categories, Pakistan has gone up from the 50s or 60s or 90s to the 20s and 30s, 15s or 20s, etc. So something remarkable has happened due to the policies that we brought in. Back in 2000, when I was the Minister for Science and later the chairman of the HEC. And this is the graph that Professor Raza Shah mentioned, taken from the Web of Science, Pakistan versus India, publications per 10 million individuals. We were 400% behind India. This is the year 2000 here, that is 2020. So we were about 400% behind India. Now we are about 15% ahead of India on a per capita basis, per 10 million individuals or per million individuals. So something very interesting has happened. And the reason I mentioned President Musharraf was that I managed to convince him that the only way forward for Pakistan was to invest in education. With a population of 200 million or so at that time, our real resource lies in our children, especially we have a very young population. About 60% of our population is below the age of 30. So unless you invest in education, and it's not just higher education, starting from school and then college and then school. So I was responsible just for science and higher education. So I managed to convince him to give a 6,000% increase in the development budget of science and later a 3,500% increase in the development budget of higher education. And we focused on faculty development. So about 11,000 of the brightest young men and women in Pakistan, after rigorous tests, selection, were sent to the world's leading universities and then attracted back to excellent salaries, to a $100,000 research grant for every returning student who could apply a year before in advance, to the establishment of a digital library with 65,000 textbooks and 25,000 international journals, to free access to sophisticated instrumentation, etc., and through a 10-year track system of salaries, as I said, and other means, and jobs on arrival. And and I was also responsible for IT. So that led to a huge change in our university research, which was shown by the previous graphs. I also was responsible for IT. And so we formulated Pakistan's first IT policy, gave a 15-year tax holiday. जो mobile phone है आपके पास, सिर्फ 2 लाख mobile phone थे पाकिस्तान में उस वक्त. So I looked at why is not mobile phone not expanding. The reason was people had to pay for receiving a call. तो लोग कहता है मैं क्यों मोबाइल रखूं, कॉल वो करेगा, पैसे मेरी जेब से जाएंगे, तो आम आदमी तो नहीं रखना चाहता था. So I switched it. I said this should be the calling party we should pay. फिर rates इतने ज़्यादा थे. So I brought in Ufone. Ufone was a subsidiary of PTCL. So I brought in Ufone at much cheaper rates, creating market competition. Mobiling वगैरह सबको अपने rates घटाने पड़े, and that resulted to a huge explosion. Now we have more than 200 million. From 200,000, we are now at 200 million mobile phones in the country. So just policies. Government ने एक पैसा खर्च नहीं किया, लेकिन एक revolution एक आया mobile telephony में. And then we established various engineering was given a priority and established various engineering universities. We placed Pakistan's first satellite in space, PakSat-1, और जो हमने कहा कि हमने oceanic borders extend किए. पाकिस्तान के oceanic जो boundary थी वो सिर्फ 200 nautical miles थी अपने coastline से. So we could go up to 350 provided we did a survey and file a petition before UN. So we did that, had that completed. It was started in 2005. Finally, it took 10 years, but finally in 2015, we were granted an extension of our geographical boundaries to 350 nautical miles. So उसमें जो भी अब तेल है या दूसरे ज़ख़ीरे हैं वो पाकिस्तान के पास हैं because of this success. And there were various positive comments. Chairman of the UN Commission on Science, Technology, Development wrote an article which said no other country has shown such positive development as Pakistan during the last 6 years. ये 2008 में publish किया था. And Thomson Reuters compared Pakistan with the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and wrote an article in which it said that the highest percentage of highly cited papers was from Pakistan as compared to the BRIC countries. And India became concerned at what was going on, and there was a presentation made to the Indian Prime Minister on 22nd July 2006, and it was reported in the Hindustan Times about what Pakistan was doing. And Professor C.N.R. Rao, the advisor to the Indian Prime Minister, made this presentation to him. And India then decided to close down its UGC and establish an HEC on what we had done. And there have been other reports by World Bank, USAID, British Council, and Nature, the world's top science journal, has written 4 editorials about what I was doing. The last was on 22nd September 2010, which happened to be my birthday also. And there was an article which called me a force of nature. So it was a humbling editorial. Anyway, and there was a book which has come out more recently by Professor Fred Hayward, Pargay Macmillan, which is a chapter on this transformation of Pakistan, which I just described. So those of you who are interested, I can send that chapter to you. I have a soft copy of that chapter. And these are some of we have had more than 100 German students who have come here prior to the COVID things. And some of the Nobel laureates, this is on the left is Professor Richard Ernst, the Nobel laureate in NMR. Next is Sir Derek Barton, famous British scientist, the famous Barton reaction. And on the extreme right is Jean-Marie Lane, supramolecular chemistry, the Nobel laureate from France. They've all visited this institute and given lectures here, etc. And they made various positive remarks, which I will not go into. TWAS has introduced a prize which is given to young scientists every year on TWAS Award in Chemistry, the World Academy of Sciences, TWAS, Italy, Trieste. And 12 scientists, young scientists from different countries have won this prize so far. I'd like to end here by thanking Dr. Suhail Malik, Dr. Yusuf Ahmad, Shadi Anjum, and Dr. Mariam for the rearrangement reactions, Mariam Azara, and then for the cultural chemistry, our colleagues in Jordan, Sadiq Sabri, Amal Al-Aboudi, Lashmani, I didn't have time to get into. Epilepsy, Professor Iqbal Chaudhry, Mr. Di Lorenzo, Mohsin, Farzana Shaheen, and everyone, of course, the financial support, various international agencies. So this was somewhat of a breathless account. I could have given you much more about each topic, but I thought it's a potpourri of different things that we have been doing. It'll give you a broad glimpse. The bottom lesson I think that we have to learn is that you have to have a determination, a steel will, an iron will. ये करना है हमें. और ये अगर will हो, determination हो, so there is nothing that can stop you. You have to have an iron will. एक रास्ता नहीं मिलता तो दूसरा रास्ता नहीं मिलता तो तीसरा रास्ता. मैंने एक यूनिवर्सिटी वहाँ अभी हाल में बनाई है, वहाँ हरीपुर में, पंजाब में एक बन रही है जिसमें कुछ रुकावटें हैं, सो कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि दूर हो. कराची की मैं आज सुबह भी 1 घंटा लगा रहा हूँ कि कराची में भी एक यूनिवर्सिटी बन जाए, and I'm trying to get a point. So you have to keep at it, determination, and trying various things, and finally it works out. तो अल्लाह ताला मुसब्बिबुल अस्बाब है, वो खुद अस्बाब पैदा करता है. आप अपने determination हो, कोशिश हो, नेकनियती हो, so then the sky is the limit. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions. The reason is that Pakistan and India were born together. India has forged ahead. India is a huge industrial giant. India has huge successes in almost every field, whereas Pakistan has been a huge failure in almost every field. The contrast is huge. If you look at the IITs, 6 IIT बनाए थे, अब 23 IITs हैं. If you look at the contribution of India in various fields of science and engineering, they have been huge. So both countries एक वक्त में पैदा हुए थे. India may had the good luck to have Nehru with his visionary thought, importance to education and to science. And that vision continued by successive leaders. Pakistan, unfortunately, Quaid-e-Azam died and Liaquat Ali was assassinated. And with the result that we never had political stability. And we just have had these civilian governments and military governments going on. But the vision, the future of any country lies in its investment in education, in science, in technology, and in innovation and entrepreneurship. That has been missing, unfortunately, in this country. So a comparison with India is natural. And we are far behind. Economically, we are even far behind Bangladesh now. Again, for the same reason, because we have never invested or tried to invest in education. तो हमें आगे बढ़ना है. We can give examples of सिंगापुर का एग्जांपल दे सकते हैं. छोटा सा मुल्क है, पॉपुलेशन कराची से 1/4, 55 लाख, एक्सपोर्ट्स 400 अरब डॉलर, पाकिस्तान की एक्सपोर्ट 35 अरब डॉलर, सिंगापुर की एक्सपोर्ट 400 अरब डॉलर. क्या वजह? ली कुआन यू, one man with a vision, focused approach, emphasizing the ability to manufacture and export high technology, high value added products. That's where the money is. Pakistan, we have been unfortunately trapped in the low value added vicious circle. 60% of our exports are textiles, which is and high tech areas में 1% भी नहीं है. So this vision has to change, and that can only be done through proper leadership. जी सर. जी.
ऐसा कुछ सिस्टम नजर नहीं आ रहा और जो पाकिस्तान एजुकेशन सेक्टर पे इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है 1 या 2% से भी कम है. करंट को रैंकिंग पाकिस्तान की टॉप में नहीं आ रहा. आपको उस तरफ सर एक कंपेरिजन अभी देखा इंडिया के साथ तो आपका कैपिटल के हिसाब से मैंने वो कंपेरिजन देखा पॉपुलेशन का इंडिया से पे कंपीट कर रहे हो. लेकिन अगर नंबर ऑफ पेपर्स या पब्लिकेशन इन नेचर साइंस जियोग्राफी या बहुत ज़्यादा आगे है. तो सर इसकी क्या वजह है, इस चीज़ को कैसे मीट?
जी, पर कैपिटा के हिसाब से हम 400% पीछे थे 2000 में. अब जो है कोई 15% आगे हैं, बट पर कैपिटा पॉपुलेशन को अगर सामने रखें तो इंडिया पब्लिकेशन आर अबाउट 6 times मोर देन पाकिस्तान. दैट इज सो. बट उस वक्त तो हम पर कैपिटा के हिसाब से ही पीछे थे, 25 गुना पीछे थे. अब एक्चुअल नंबर में 6 गुना पीछे, विच जब पॉपुलेशन को सामने रखा जाए तो दैट इज अबाउट पैरेलल टू इंडिया और अबाउट द सेम. जो प्रॉब्लम असल में रहा है, जो ट्रिपल हीलिक्स की बात करी कि वी हैव नेवर इन्वॉल्व द प्राइवेट सेक्टर, and that is why I've been emphasizing in my articles that the name of the game is the private sector. जो कुछ थोड़ी बहुत रिसर्च होती है वो पब्लिक सेक्टर में होती है. चाइना को अगर आप देखें क्या वजह से तरक्की की, कि चाइना हैज, एंड सिमिलरली विद कोरिया एंड मेनी अदर कंट्रीज, दे हैव पुट इन अ लॉट ऑफ मनी इन स्ट्रेंथनिंग private sector research laboratories, giving various incentives to the private sector to go into high-tech areas, creating zones and so on. So that is the way which should be there, but which has been missing. So unless you can link these, अभी मेरा आर्टिकल आएगा अगले बुध को कि चाइना के साथ हम किस तरह लेके आगे बढ़ सकते हैं, द न्यूज में आएगा नेक्स्ट वेडनेसडे, which is the private sector from Pakistan and private sector from China. University from Pakistan and university from China, the quad philosophy, all focused on one product manufacture and export. एक quad, दूसरा quad, 50वां quad, 100 quads, each quad focused on one product for export. Okay, mechanism for public-private partnership, that's absolutely critical. Those mechanisms are non-existing in this country, and our planning has never thought about it. You see, okay, how do we link up? खाली तकारीर से नहीं होता. You have to have viable mechanism on ground, which will allow the industry to make money and which will allow us to cooperate with foreign industries. China is a good friend and we can actually join in together in many areas, but we must have a suitable framework under which we must interact.
I mean, indeed, we are glad that you are with us and very fortunate to have a guidance from you. But my question is about the long-term sustainability of higher education landscape in Pakistan. We have heard about the era of Parvez Musharraf, where billions of rupees, injected to the higher education, and you actually played a critical role to uplift the educational infrastructures. Several programs were actually initiated and they were very useful. And among those, I remember that the sending of young scholars abroad to get the degree from universities and then came back. And that has actually played a very dynamic role in changing the whole landscape. But what happened? Right after that, the whole program is shut down and closed. Similarly, you have initiated so many programs, including tenure track system. The tenure track system at that time was outstanding, but now is severely deteriorated. The current faculty member is really upset about the current situation of tenure track. So my concern that is it a kind of person dependent that we don't have any unfortunate a kind of system who actually provide a long-term sustainability and solution of Pakistan higher education sector. So that is my concern. I need your feedback about that.
You see, a long-term sustainability comes only with a proper political system under which only the best can go up the ladder and become your leaders, your ministers. Political system तो आपके पास ऐसा है कि आपके 200 पार्लियामेंटेरियंस ऐसे थे जिनकी डिग्रीज फौज थी 200 पार्लियामेंटेरियंस HEC फाउंड दैट सुप्रीम कोर्ट का डिसीजन हुआ कि आप इन्वेस्टिगेट करें तो उन्होंने फिर डिग्री की खाली बैचलर्स की रिक्वायरमेंट थी 200 parliamentarians had forged degrees. So when you have a corrupt political system, you cannot have sustainability. There needs to be basically a system, political system, where only the best can go up the ladder. And there are many examples of such systems that are in the West. That has been what has been missing. So sporadic development and then collapse has been the order of the day in different sectors. And this unfortunately has been happening here also. So unless we change our own political system and bring in a system which is based on merit and merit alone, Pakistan will not develop. We'll always have these ups and downs.
So, that we have done a lot of progress in publishing papers, but it's not converted into innovation and commercialization. Our innovation index is very low. So, what we should do to have higher innovation, probably more emphasis on innovation, because लोगों ने ढेर लगा दी publication के 300, 500 publications, but this is the effect of.
This is a very important point. While we have a lot of publications, you see very little impact in terms of economic development. So I was in HEC as a member, and so was Dr. Akram Sheikh, the former Deputy Chairman of Planning Commission. And the two of us, therefore, created a set of parameters, some 40 recommendations for the HEC, how to link research with industrial or agricultural development. And this was given to the HEC for implementation. Okay, आप जो हैं, जैसे for instance, we have very little rewards for patents. We have very little rewards for developing new species. सिर्फ research के ऊपर है. तो जो सारे जो parameters हैं, that they have to be basically drastically changed so that impact analysis on the lives of common man can be built into those. So those have been developed in the last 2 years and given to HEC, but HEC has not implemented them. और डॉक्टर अकरम शेख रिटायर होने वाले हैं अब से मेंबरशिप से HEC के, वो यही कह रहे थे कि हमने काम किया, सब चीज लिख के दे दी, लेकिन nothing happened. So unless there is again people in power who understand the need to link research with development, and the examples are there. कोरिया के ऊपर मैंने बहुत से आर्टिकल लिखे हैं कि कोरिया ने किस तरह किया, चाइना ने किस तरह किया, सिंगापुर ने किस तरह किया. There are models. It's no rocket science. We just have to see those and we see which are the optimum ones for us. The models do exist and we need to adopt them and implement them on ground. So the planning ministry and the finance ministry has to be under a visionary person who understands the importance of transitioning to a technology-driven knowledge economy. And that's where the triple helix comes in.
After presentation with someone, because Atta is the most decorated person, every slide shows the excellence and success. When you can interview what the failures do, and what the learn करते हैं. I mean, can you share some failure which you learned?
Oh yes, I've had a huge number of failures.
लेकिन
one of the biggest failures was my effort to set up foreign engineering universities in Pakistan. So I had this vision of an IIT plus. India में तो IIT है. हमने कहा IIT plus. Plus का मतलब कि उनके अंदर हम commercial development करें, technology parks रखें और private sector को लेकर आए ताकि product का development और commercial development जो कि IIT में नहीं होता. अब उन्होंने थोड़ा बहुत शुरू किया एक आध IIT. So IIT plus model में लेकर आया. Karachi में I took 1,300 acres of land on the link road for establishment of the French, Italian, and Korean engineering universities. The land was allotted, projects were approved. French project was approved, the other was in the pipeline. In Lahore, in DHA, the German and Austrian engineering universities. In Sialkot, the Swedish engineering university. In Islamabad, the Chinese engineering university, etc. 9 engineering. 30 foreign universities came together and signed agreement with us. Professor Harun Ahmed, Cambridge, a wonderful person. He was the master at Corpus Christi. He was so excited about this project. He resigned from Cambridge and joined me for 3 years and worked in Pakistan. He was the head of the Cavendish laboratories at Cambridge, the top engineering laboratory in Cambridge. So it was a magnificent, and we traveled around the world convincing these people, and then everything, the projects were approved. 2006-7 में अप्रूव हुई, 2008 के अक्टूबर में लॉन्च करनी थी, 2008 के शुरू में there was a change of government and the political government came in. हमने buildings भी तैयार कर ली थी, furnishing भी कर ली थी, faculty भी आने के लिए तैयार थी. 9 engineering universities हम पहले बना रहे थे. They said we don't want this foreign universities in Pakistan. We are quite happy with what we are. The whole thing was a washout. So सारा का सारा collapse हो गया. All that effort went down. One of my biggest failures. But I kept at it. That's what I was talking about, determination. ठीक है. Failures are part of life. You should learn from them and you should move on. And I said, no, I'm not going to give up. ठीक है. It didn't work. I started again 6-7 years later, got the money from the KP government, established the Pakistan Austrian University, wonderful university now in Haripur with 20 foreign engineering universities collaborating. 20 foreign engineering universities collaborating with the technology park, commercial development वगैरह हो रही है. Then Sialkot, वो start हुआ, आधी बिल्डिंगें बन गई, political change हुआ, 2 साल से पैसे नहीं दिए गए. अब मैं और शाहिद कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि वो प्रोजेक्ट रिवाइव हो जाए. आधी बिल्डिंगें बनी पड़ी हैं. Karachi, I'm trying. So the thing is, you have to be polite, you have to be firm, and you have to have a determination, and you keep on trying under all circumstances. So you, of course, you learn from your failures, but you should not get disappointed and give up. There's no such thing as giving up in life. There are new mountains to climb every time you have a failure. I'll take one last question because there are other meetings I have to go to, or 2 last questions. Okay.
हमारे यहाँ पॉलिटिकल जो गवर्नमेंट है वो चेंज होती रहती है, तो हमारे यहाँ के सिस्टम में कोई ब्यूरोक्रेट एस्टैब्लिशमेंट डिपार्टमेंट का भी ऐसा पर्सन इन्वॉल्व नहीं है वो उस सिस्टम का हिस्सा रहे. अगर गवर्नमेंट चेंज भी हो रही हो, अगर हम उनसे ही बात कर सकते ये है या इस प्रोजेक्ट के लिए हमें फंड की अप्रूवल मिला हुआ था, गवर्नमेंट चेंज हुई तो जैसे आपने कहा कि वो खत्म हो गया, तो कोई ऐसा
Establishment department से आपकी मुराद आर्मी है, armed forces है. सीधी बात करें, armed forces है, the military. The answer is yes, they are calling the shots. You have a pseudo democracy here. The country is actually, it's a kind of a pseudo martial law. So I've already had one meeting with, at that time last year, General Asim Munir. I'm seeking another meeting with him now, the field marshal, to say that, look, we are on the wrong track. And I've sent him an article, the quotes पर जो मेरे बुध को आएगा Wednesday पर. So in every issue there is a solution also, and we have to work towards those solutions. So the answer is yes, there are possibilities. Even under army rule, a lot of very good developments have been made. Korea it was General Park. He was a military general, and the wonderful beginning and the successes of Korea are largely due to that general and his vision. So it can be done under the army also, but there has to be a vision and rasta sahi hona chahiye in order for that to happen. I'm sorry, one last question, फिर बाद में बात कर लेंगे जी।
पाकिस्तान के अंदर जो कॉलेजेस हैं यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल की रेटिंग पे वो अपग्रेड किया जा रहा है। तालीम तालीम में ना तरह की लैब होती है, ना ही कोई साइंस करने का कोई माहौल होता है। तो इस चैलेंज को हमने कैसे देखना होगा? तो एक वजह से हम कॉलेज लेवल पे दिया और ग्रेजुएट स्टार्ट हुआ, हालांकि यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल का एक वो था जिसमें हमने लैब वगैरह सारी फैसिलिटी तो इस चैलेंज को हम कैसे देखेंगे?
जी हाँ, ये बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है जो आपने कहा है, क्योंकि सिर्फ कॉलेजेस नहीं, स्कूल, गवर्नमेंट स्कूल को देखें, इट्स अ डिजास्टर। कॉलेजेस के अंदर और यूनिवर्सिटी, अब तो यूनिवर्सिटीज भी लो लेवल कॉलेजेस बनती जा रही हैं, और उस पर लिखा भी है मैंने। सो व्हाट इज द आंसर? कैन वी फाइंड अ सोल्यूशन? I believe we can to some extent, not the total answer or part answer. वो क्या है? The answer is MOOCs. What are MOOCs? Massive Open Online Courses. MOOC. So what we did about 10 years ago was that I wrote to MIT, to Stanford, to Harvard, and to other universities, took their permission, downloaded all their courses, and there are now 73,000 courses at school level, at college level, at university level. उसका वेबसाइट का एड्रेस आप जो लोग नोट, दे आर फ्री, नो पेमेंट, नो रजिस्ट्रेशन। वेबसाइट एड्रेस है LEJ, लतीफ इब्राहिम जमाल जो इस इदारे का जो इनिशियल है, LEJ for learning, LEARNING.com.pk. That is the website. I repeat, LEJ for learning, LEARNING.com.pk. इसको कॉन्स्टेंटली हम ऐड कर रहे हैं, इस इदारे के तहत हमने चला रखा है, और इसमें स्कूल के लेवल के भी हैं, कॉलेज लेवल कोर्सेज भी हैं, यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल, आपको खुद घर बैठे पढ़ सकते हैं आप। खान एकेडमी के कोर्सेज सारे मौजूद हैं अंग्रेजी में, 3,500 कोर्सेज को उर्दू में भी ट्रांसलेट कराया है, और वो भी इसमें ऐड कर दिए गए हैं, एंड दीज आर कॉन्स्टेंटली बीइंग अपग्रेडेड. So the answer lies now, because of the technology, if you have access to internet, that you can now learn on your own and learn from the best. You don't have to rely on your school teachers. You can learn from the best schools or colleges in the West, sitting at home at zero cost. So the answer to at least some extent is MOOCs. Practical training तो नहीं होगी, जो कि laboratory में चाहिए होती है, लेकिन फिर भी एक हद तक आप अपने आप को cover कर सकते हैं. Ultimately, it is responsibility of the government. But just blaming the government is not enough. We have to find solutions. In spite of the difficulties, can we find alternative solutions? So this is an alternative. I think we need to stop here because there was another meeting. So thank you very much. It's been a nice talking to you.
So thank you everyone and for coming in this lecture, and we'll come back in the next lecture series soon. So thank you so very much. That lecture is adjourned now.